Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to step into my shoes for just a second. The year is 1902. As an investigative journalist at McClure's magazine, my office is basically a smoke-filled room dominated by this massive, chaotic murder board. We're talking red string connecting maps, obscure train routes, and these incredibly confusing corporate shell companies. My colleagues and I, led by the absolute force of nature that is Ida Tarbell, are staring at this board, hunting the most secretive, powerful, and frankly terrifying monopoly in American history.
But here's the thing, we're literally hunting a ghost. One of my colleagues actually hit the nail on the head regarding the public's frustration, saying, you could argue its existence from its effects, but you could not prove it. I mean, think about that murder board vibe. We're watching competitors mysteriously go bankrupt overnight. We're seeing railroad rates aggressively shift out of nowhere to crush independent drillers. But the hand pulling the strings? Completely invisible. It's an entirely untraceable empire.
So, the ultimate question haunting our entire newsroom is simple. How do you catch a ghost? I mean, how does a reporter like Ida Tarbell possibly expose a man who hides his sprawling power behind secret handshakes, closed doors, and just endless legal mazes? Well, to map the beast, our investigation actually has to start with the mind of the man who built it.
To truly understand the roots of this monopoly, we have to flash back way before the oil derricks, back to the 1840s, to uncover the twisted, kind of dark lessons a young John D. Rockefeller learned from his father. His dad was William Avery Rockefeller, known to the locals as Devil Bill. And that wasn't just a fun nickname. The guy was a literal con artist who masqueraded as a traveling salesman to cover up a terrifying double life of bigamy and fraud.
You have to hear this chilling confession from Devil Bill. He actually bragged, I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make them sharp. And that wasn't just tough talk. He once told young John to jump into his arms, only to step back at the last second and let the boy crash right into the floorboards. This incredibly cruel parenting philosophy taught John early on that trust is absolute weakness. The world to him was strictly a predator or prey battlefield.
50 cents. That was his daily wage as a 16-year-old assistant bookkeeper. Eventually abandoned by his bigamist father, young John developed this massive neurosis for control. He was meticulous to the point of pure obsession, tracking every single penny he made or spent in this little red book he called Ledger A. For John, he found safety in numbers, because numbers, unlike his father, well, they never lied.
Fast forward to 1865, and that cold meticulousness turns into just pure ruthlessness. Rockefeller finds himself in a private auction showdown to buy out his older partner, Morris Clark, for their shared oil refinery. The bidding starts out pretty low, but Rockefeller, he just keeps going. His face is completely cold, deadpan, until he bids an astonishing $72,500. He completely bankrupted his partner's courage through sheer relentless nerve. At just 25 years old, he had won his first refinery.
And this brilliantly illustrates how Rockefeller applied his cold, calculating ledger A mindset to an entirely new, wildly chaotic industry, oil refining. Rockefeller looked at the wasteful world of oil and literally saw money disappearing into thin air. While others were just dumping chemical waste straight into the river, he found ways to package and sell it as lubricating oil and wax. He's systematically cut out every single middleman, eliminated waste, and really began his total conquest of Cleveland.
But to truly conquer, he needed a hidden weapon. Let's pin the three ruthless pillars of his secret shell corporation, the South Improvement Company, right onto our investigative board. Number 1, the rebate. He negotiated massive secret shipping discounts just for his oil. Number 2, the spy network. Railroads literally reported his rivals' movements, shipments, and prices directly back to him. And number 3, this is the absolute audacious kill shot, the drawback. The railroads actually paid Rockefeller a cut of his competitors' own shipping fees. Honestly, it was a brilliantly, terrifyingly rigged game. Just look at the terrifying speed of his conquest. This period actually became known as the 1872 Cleveland Massacre. Armed with that secret cartel leverage, Rockefeller began his buyout campaign in February. In one legendary, cutthroat 48-hour window, he swallowed 6 independent refineries. By March, just weeks later, 22 of the 26 refineries in Cleveland had completely surrendered. The choice was brutal. You either sold to him on his terms or you were crushed. There was this stark, chilling contrast between the man the public saw and the reality of his boardroom. To the public, walking by his 26 Broadway office, he was a calm, quiet, extremely pious deacon, but his private tactics? Utterly cutthroat.
In one negotiation, he reportedly led a reluctant rival to an open window, 6 stories up, and casually noted the beautiful view, quietly implying that if a man were to, slip, it would only take 6 seconds to become a public obituary.
Once Cleveland fell, he looked at a map of America and designed the ultimate blueprint for a monopoly: scorched earth vertical integration. He choked off his competitors' oxygen by controlling every single piece of the supply chain. He bought the white oak barrel manufacturers. He purchased the chemical acid plants. When independent oilmen tried to build their own pipeline to bypass his railroads, he bought strips of land specifically to block their path, and his teams even sabotaged their lines. This is the exact playbook we see debated today. It's the absolute textbook definition of monopoly power. He invented the blueprint.
90%. Let that sink in. By 1879, this former assistant bookkeeper had successfully consolidated all that chaos. He had won the great game, and he now effectively controlled 90% of the entire American oil industry.
But here's the million-dollar question. How do you rule an empire that isn't actually legally supposed to exist? Well, now what's really interesting about this is how his lawyers invented something the world had never seen before: the Trust of 1882. It was this elaborate legal shell game designed to pool the stock of 40 different companies under 9 trustees. When government regulators came knocking, they found nothing but a maze of paperwork designed to blind them, a trail that led absolutely nowhere. He had successfully, legally, hidden his monopoly in plain sight. Yet, even as the master of the world, he never lost that meticulous Ledger A obsession. 39. That is the exact number of drops of solder Rockefeller demanded his factories use to seal a kerosene tin. Why? Because 40 drops was a waste and 38 leaked. He scaled this tiny, obsessive optimization globally, even giving away cheap lamps in Asia to ensure entire continents had to buy his oil forever. He was saving an absolute fortune drop by drop. But eventually, by 1902, the ghost's trail was finally picked up. Journalists like Ida Tarbell and newsrooms like ours started digging through the graveyard of Standard Oil. Tarbell was actually the survivor of a ruined independent oil family, and her relentless hunt was immensely difficult. For 2 years, we tracked down discarded employees, unearthed secret contracts buried deep in railroad basements, and painstakingly mapped the rebates on our board to finally drag the ghost out into the light. When our reports hit the newsstands, the backlash was nothing short of nuclear. Tarbell's incredible articles not only exposed the mechanics of the Standard Oil anaconda, but we ripped away that pious deacon's mask entirely. The public finally learned about the scandalous double life of Rockefeller's criminal father, Devil Bill. Public awe instantly curdled into unadulterated hatred, which forced President Theodore Roosevelt's hand. It gave him the exact ammunition he needed to launch the greatest antitrust investigation in history.
But here is the supreme, bitter irony of our entire investigation. When the Supreme Court finally shattered the empire into 34 pieces in 1911, the intended punishment backfired in spectacular fashion. Rockefeller didn't lose his ownership. He simply saw it decentralized. He kept his massive share of stock in all 34 new companies. And free from the legal shackles of the trust, the value of those individual stocks, they absolutely skyrocketed.
$1 billion. As the world transitioned from kerosene lamps into the modern gasoline age, this supposed legal destruction of his empire set his net worth completely on fire. He became the world's first confirmed billionaire. The government's ultimate punishment didn't destroy him. It made his wealth explode beyond human comprehension.
In his final years, sensing his time was running out, he hired the world's first PR experts to scrub his name, handing out shiny dimes to children and pouring unprecedented fortunes into medical research and universities. So I leave you with this to ponder. Was this massive, final philanthropy the genuine awakening of a guilty conscience, or simply the ultimate, brilliant con of an untouchable titan? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep asking questions.